Yanko, I've been very much looking forward to the opportunity to talk with a fellow who spends time in the rooms as I have spent time in the rooms. It's to me the 12-step way of life. I have not found a single situation, a single problem that I cannot use, that the 12 steps does not help me get an avenue into making it better.
I would very much agree with that statement. One of the things that I used to hear in the rooms is that the world would be a better place if everybody was in an anonymous program. It's
Totally.
true.
And working this, I want to introduce the audience to you. And we want to do this through your video, which will give us a little bit of background of some things to talk about.
Sounds good.
It was in the suburban streets of Oceanside, New York, where my journey began. At 15, drawn into the underbelly of the drug world, I learned early the harsh realities of life on the edge. I remember the nights spent in dimly lit back alleys, exchanging shady packages for cash, always watching over my shoulder. I made an empire of my own design. At my peak, I had more than 200 grand buried in a hidden spot, but the money I made couldn't be added to my Roth IRA. It came at the expense of living a safe and normal life. These experiences in the drug underworld, full of danger and threats, were my unintended business school. They taught me the art of negotiation, the importance of taking leaps of faith, and strategic thinking, skills that I now know are invaluable in legitimate business. My journey took a turn when I reached rock bottom. In the depths of despair, I found a new path. Embracing my faith, I began a process of transformation. This wasn't just a religious awakening, it was a complete life overhaul. Today, as a business and life coach, I draw on these hard-earned lessons from my past. The same tactics that once propelled my illicit activities, like navigating the complexities of running a business or how to obtain financial freedom by pursuing your own endeavors, now fuel my approach to coaching entrepreneurs and individuals. I guide my clients with a unique perspective, embracing failure as a stepping stone to success, the importance of calculated risks, and the art of turning challenges into advantages. My past has become a powerful tool for helping others to be the hero of their story. I will help you see that the resilience, adaptability, and strategic mindset honed in your toughest times can be your greatest assets. Any challenge you're experiencing is really a gift that can be redirected to financial success. Let's harness those challenges together and ignite the flame, live the light, and vanquish the darkness.
What goes through your mind when you see your bio again like this?
Very proud. I'm very proud of the fact that I was able to make such a dramatic turnaround and become a success story instead of a unfortunate statistic.
Yanko, when you think about that tipping point, that moment at the very bottom, when you could have gone left or right, and can you go back there and go, what was the whisper? What was the small that said, wait, because that's an important moment.
Yeah, for sure. So let me just give a brief description of what that moment was like for a second. So
Please.
I had been running a drug empire when I was 19 years old. I had about 10 employees, including a gang member for a bodyguard. This gang member, unfortunately, turned on me and started extorting me and basically robbing me blind, or not even blind, right in front of my face. And there was very little that I could do about it. He had a very good friend who was a mafia hitman, who also was a part of our crew in a more, not exactly an employee type situation, but somebody who hung around us. And the mafia hitman found out that my bodyguard was using heroin. In the mafia, that's a big no-no. They do not want to be associated with heroin in any way. So the mafia hitman somehow got a hold of my mother's phone number, and he called her and told her that her son was in grave danger and that she should get me out of that situation. Now, his intention really wasn't for my well-being per se, but he did know that me being the businessman of the group, if I left, then the house of cards would topple. So my mother and father gave me an ultimatum, and they said, you can either leave home because I have a younger sister and you're potentially putting her at risk and danger, or you can leave that life. And then that was when I had a choice. I could either go left or I could go right. And I told them that I will have to think about it for a day, which looking back on it now is absolutely crazy, but
well, that's what insanity is all about, right?
100%. That was absolute insanity to the fullest, but here's what happened for me. I tried to imagine every possible situation and outcome that could possibly come about from me leaving my house and going back to that life. And every single simulation that I ran through my head ended up with me either dead, in jail, or in a mental institution.
Yeah.
And that is when I surrendered. And I just said,
I accept that. Was there a physical component along with because you have made the intellectual case, as many of us have, but was there a physical component that you were having to deal with?
Sure. I mean, like a day or two before this was, my parents gave me this ultimatum, I basically got my mouth punched so hard that I had to eventually totally remove that tooth and replace it entirely. And I felt that my life was being physically threatened, that there was a point where I got stabbed.
Was there a substance abuse component to the being in the life?
For me personally,
were you able to stay out of not getting high on your own supply?
No, for sure not. But I did not, thankfully, go into heroin or cocaine even. I just stayed with marijuana, and I mean, I was high all day and I was selling it. Sure. And I had the ability to do that because of the quantities that I was selling. But I was smart enough to know that once you cross over that line, it's really, really hard to cross back. And I was satisfied, I guess, with the high that I got from marijuana.
Yeah, I would. That's one of the great blessings of marijuana. It has one horrible side effect: it wears off.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's true about all of them.
Right. Well, it does. It does. But some of the others have some other things that come along with it. All right. So you made that decision, and so you made the decision to do that. So what were those first days like?
Well, first of all,
did you have the pink cloud, or did you go out? I mean, how did that work? Because so many of us who go through, for whatever emotional reasons we have, emotional and physical and spiritual reasons that we have, that we go into any kinds of addiction. And I see addiction as anything that I am looking for that's outside to fix something that is inside. And that can be gambling, pornography, drugs, food, shopping, doesn't matter. But I'm attempting to heal something that has to work inside. Now, did you have that as a concept, or were you willing to look? How did you move into seeking support and help and this?
So you asked two questions there. I
Oh,
think.
I probably asked 7. I actually asked
Yeah.
7. So pick any ones you want, Yankel, and
Okay.
dig in.
Okay. Well, so here's the thing. Number one, the first question that I can remember that you asked me,
Yeah.
which is that my father was a drug therapist. So I was not far into the idea or concept of addiction. And I totally agree 100% spot on with your definition of what it is. There's lots of things that could be addictions, 100%. So I wasn't totally unaware of the concept. Plus, in addition to that, I had spent from the age of 16 to 18, I was in a youth rehab facility that was supposed to last 6 months, but I ended up spending 26 months in that place. So I knew what it was. I knew exactly what I was getting into, and
And you had been through the 12 steps there. Was it 12-step orientation
no,
because some rehabs are and some aren't.
yeah, no, this was more like, if I had to be totally honest, and I mean no disrespect to the people who worked there and the whole program that they wanted to inspire, but it was more of a holding cell with attempts at healing that may have worked but anyway, addiction is a very small percent of the time do people ever get healed from that anyway. So it didn't offer what I felt like would have turned the tide for me, but at the same time, I also was not ready to hear the message yet. Anyway, I had hit rock bottom, but not. There was a trap door there for me that I was waiting to open up, and eventually that trap door opened, and the first few days you asked about the pink cloud. Now I remember. The first few days of getting out. So it's not like in that lifestyle when you are, kind of the leader of a criminal organization, you don't get to just walk away and say, okay, it's been nice. I'm retiring now.
No,
Bye
stop
bye.
crying. I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Where?
Y'all have a wonderful life. Have a
Yeah.
wonderful life. Look, and I'll take care and, enjoy. Yeah. Oh, no.
No, it's not at all like that. You don't get a gold Rolex on the way out. Nothing like that. It's
Little trophy.
yeah, no trophies, no Rolexes, no nothing. I was hunted for a little while, and I had to leave my town. I basically hid away in upstate New York at my uncle's kind of rural, very, very rural, isolated property that he has up there. And thank God that he was able to help me with that. I stayed up there for about a week, and then I came back down, hid again until I was able to get myself to a rehab in Florida. And that was where I really, really, really surrendered and said, I am ready. And then the pink cloud began a little bit. Things
Oh, God,
are
because
very.
we're not holding down. I mean, we're not. One of the things that I love about the 12-step program for me is that I am not responsible for the results. I am responsible for the footwork.
Yeah.
And that really makes it, and that relieves me of having to try to manipulate everything in my life to try to make it work out the way I need it to do, because that's the definition of insanity.
Absolutely, 100%. But that takes a healed, recovery mind in order to live that way. I mean, the truth of the matter is, I was just having a conversation right before this one. Literally 5 minutes before I was set to come on here, I ended the conversation with a guy, not an addict, but a person who is experiencing life in a way that his mind is running so fast from trying to control all the different little aspects that he can't actually accomplish anything because he's just going, and there's no slowing down. There's no surrender of control. There's no allowing for things to happen. It's just like trying to have a stranglehold on something that like a slippery eel. You cannot hold it.
No. And God, that's I love that me at 76. How old are you today?
37.
You at 37. We can have had the exact same experience. To be able to connect, to be able to know, that's one of the things that I just find so profound about the 12-step program, is that it is absolutely customizable to me. I don't have to ascribe to anything. I can customize it perfectly to fit me, and I see you. It can customize to you, and it can work for both of us. And that is one of the blessings of this weird and wonderful program that is, well, it's changed so many lives around the world. I would really like to take it. Principles, not personalities.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the way that I try to look at everything in the world. Like, I'd rather not get into a heated topic, but let's say you look at people who are so-called meant to be our role models, right? On a personal level, I don't ascribe to their role modelhood. I don't find them to be particularly good role models. That doesn't mean, however, that I can't respect their position or the position that they hold.
Exactly.
I just don't need to be role modeled in that
No.
way. I have my own values and my own moral compass that I follow. I don't need somebody else to tell me which ways to go. I have my own ways of figuring that out.
Was your spiritual beliefs and your spiritual evolution, is your family devout? And were you, help me to talk about this. How's the best way to frame it? Because I want to frame your spiritual evolution, but I just don't know enough about the Jewish tradition to really to understand the arc.
Okay, great. That's a good question. So I'm not really 100% certain exactly how this works in other religions, but I'll try to do my best to create some kind of comparison scenario. So I grew up in a totally secular home where we only celebrated the majority, like the major holidays, right? So every week there is technically a day of rest called the Sabbath. I did not grow up celebrating that. Friday night for me, I was out getting high somewhere or getting drunk. It was nothing to do with anything Jewish or Judaism, and that's how most of my life went. Right, like we kind of had a foot in both worlds, but three-fourths of myself, or even more, maybe 95% of myself, was in the secular world. I grew up watching regular television and listening to rap music and watching Michael Jordan when I was a kid, and all of the things that.
No dietary restrictions?
No, I wasn't. No, not in
Okay.
our home.
All right. So
None of that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, you're good. That was a good question. None of the traditional Judaism stuff was really applied in our home. On the holiday of Passover, we ate the matzah, the crackers, and
Sure.
on Rosh Hashanah, we heard the ram's horn, like you're supposed to. But it wasn't there was no personal connection to Judaism whatsoever.
Got it.
To the extent that by the time that I got out of that life, I was an avowed atheist, which was one of my first struggles in coming to the 12 steps, with the very first step being to have a God of your understanding. For me, was a little bit difficult at that time.
Yes. Isn't it so? I mean, that is one in the rooms when I've gotten a chance to, it's one of the biggest subjects that we have. That was all I wanted to say, because I knew you would continue to talk. I just wanted to toss that in there so that you would continue on with your story.
Yeah. So that was a big impediment for me to kind of making the 12 steps a palpable part of my life and incorporating it into who I am and how I.
What does that mean? What is this word? this three-letter word we keep saying in there, because does it mean the same thing to you that it means to me? Does it mean the history of what I've heard? What is this? Ooh,
Which three-letter word are you referring to?
God.
Well, okay, so this is why I find that it's really important, and this was a crucial part of my recovery, was not so much the first part of the statement, to find a God, but rather the second part of the statement of your understanding. That part is the crucial element when it comes to recovery, because if you're if you are attempting to incorporate someone else's God into your life, who says that's not any different than the addictions that you mentioned before on your hand? It could be exactly the same.
Exactly the same.
Right. But when it's something that is deeply meaningful to you and personal to you, the God of your understanding, then it becomes yours, and you can actually, so to speak, spiritually satisfy yourself with that, with living with that. And that was a huge part of me coming into what I found to be the God of my understanding. And that happened a little bit later on when I was at an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. And a nice little old lady, I don't think she was a Jewish woman at all, she was talking about the story of the binding of Isaac, which is actually something interesting, that we just read this passage on the second day of Rosh Hashanah, the holiday that just passed, the Jewish New Year. We read this passage every year on the second day of this holiday, and it's very deeply meaningful to me. She's telling over the story how God gave Abraham a child at the tender age of 99 years old, and he tells him, this son of yours, his name is going to be Isaac, and he's going to be the one through which your progeny will continue on for generations and generations. Then, when his son turns 13 years old, he says, actually, what I want you to do is take him up to a mountain and sacrifice him to me. And Abraham,
Because sacrifice, I just want to say what I've been understanding, just so you can help me with, sacrificing was a big part of the Jewish tradition in the temple, and that they would sacrifice goats or lambs, or I mean, this was it's baked into the stories and baked into into the tradition right at that time, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
All right, so it would be understood that way. It would be understood that this was a normal practice. Not sacrificing your son, but I'm talking about the process of sacrificing to God.
Yes and no, because technically speaking, Abraham was the first Jew, and Judaism, as we understand it, that came after by Moses, didn't really exist yet.
Right.
However, Abraham and God were on a very personal, interconnected relation level. He had a God of his understanding in a very deep way for him, and I guess he understood this significance of what he was about to do.
All right. So continue this this wonderful parable.
So he goes up to the mountain and doesn't ask any questions of God, to his great credit, and that's why he's one of our forefathers. And right before he's about to sacrifice his son Isaac, an angel calls out, "Don't do it. Wait, don't do it. We just wanted to test you." And then there was a ram that was there, which is why we blow the ram's horn on Rosh Hashanah specifically. The ram was there, and he slaughtered the ram instead, and Isaac became the progeny that eventually begot the children of Israel, otherwise known as the Jews.
Right. Now this story,
yeah,
this particular story, as what again, you have to understand, I have about a 1 inch over 1,000 fathom understanding. Okay, my understanding is that then that story has lessons. That's the importance of it. The importance of it is to study all the permutations and combinations that would be from that story. Is that correct?
Well, that's true about anything that's written in the
Thank
Bible,
you.
right?
Thank you.
It's
Well,
not
I know
not
this is
necessarily limited to that specific story, about all of it.
about all all of it is what I
Yeah.
mean. Every story that comes in. That's one of the things that in most of my friends, and I grew up in a Christian family, is that as is written in the New Testament, Jesus spoke in parables, which to me are teaching stories. These are teaching stories that he used, and so that I look at the Old Testament, and I go, all right, what's the story here? What is the teaching story and the elements that we have? And then the little bit that I have read about what rabbis who and going to school and studying together, that there's a lot of discussion over these stories and what they mean and what's important about them and how can we apply them, what can we, that's a deep and important part of the faith. Do I have how am I?
Yeah, you're 100% right. One thing I would add is that a few things can be true at once, obviously, which is that on the one hand that they are a story that happened, and then there is the actual literal text, and then there is the underlying lessons that the story represents. Not to discredit the fact that this was an actual story that happened.
No. I was
No, I'm not. I'm not
not
implying. I'm
saying
not
that at
implying
all.
that you were saying that. I'm just saying that
Sure.
there are levels. There are I guess layers
Yeah.
to
Well, I
the
mean,
story.
with me, Yankel, I mean, I think about this like the prodigal son. That to me is such an extraordinary story because there's so much. Because I can see myself. I can see myself as the father. I can see myself as the jealous brother who goes, "What the hell are you doing? You're killing the fatted calf for this kid who's been away and off whoring and doing all these things, and why are you celebrating?" And I can also be that guy who is also off. I can see myself. I can see the learnings all in that, and it doesn't matter to me whether that actually happened or not, but it's the truth of it. The truth of what is in that story is so profound that I can then extract out of that.
Right.
That's what I mean is the difference between the literal and the actual, the truth that is in the matter is more important to me.
Yeah, I hear that 100%. So I think that if you were to look at it from a traditional perspective, right, the lesson of that story is that even when it appears that what God is asking of you is contradictory to logic and the way of the world per se, but not questioning His infinite wisdom brings about an even greater blessing than going according to our own feeble human logic.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we have the entire cosmos.